All right, cool. So welcome everybody. So great seeing everyone. My name is Maria Giancola. I am an educator and an artist, and I live and work in Philly. And I'm so grateful to be a part of the Portside community. I'm an assistant teacher, and I will also be an artist in residence next month that I'll be talking about in just a little bit. So a bit about me and my background. I have an MFA degree in painting from Cranbrook Academy of Art, which if you don't know of the program, it's one of its kind. It's in a town outside of Detroit, Michigan called Bloomfield Hills. And it's a really extraordinary school. I spent 2 years there and my program was painting. And I also did some teaching there that I'll outline in just a little bit. I have a BFA degree that I earned from Rutgers University, Mason Grove School of the Arts. And my degree was also in painting, and I have a minor in art history as well. So one more thing about my background is I'm also attending Moore College of Art and Design for my post-baccalaureate degree in art education, and I will be obtaining my K-12 art certification. And I'm really excited about that. So it's great to be a part of the Philly community. And I'm going to work through some slides now. And let's navigate to the next one. So here's just a little, oh, thanks, Claudia. So here's just a little rundown of what we're going to do today. First, I will show us some poetry from one of my favorite artists. I will be asking a quick fun question for everybody. I'll be outlining my recent projects, and then I'll have my contact information just in case you want to get in touch for some collaboration. And finally, at the end, I hope we'll have time for a brief survey. So here's the poetry. This is from one of my favorite artists, Agnes Martin. And she writes in her writing reflections, "Our representations of inspiration are far from perfect, for perfection is unobtainable and unattainable." So I wanted to bring up this quote today because I really felt that with COVID-19, it's a quote that has really applied to my life. And it's just really being okay with imperfection and using art to really love that imperfection. So I hope that some of you can relate to that. And I have an image of me here on the right. This is an image that I took of myself at a family member's yard, and my grandfather planted those trees in the background. And it was like me connecting to nature, but also wearing a mask. And I thought it was interesting because relating to the quote, it's about reflection as well. Yeah, so I'm going to run through the next part here. So if everyone who's here now, this is just a very casual question, feel free to post in the chat, or you could also share by unmuting yourself as well.
And also one more thing, at any point during the talk, if you have any questions, just feel free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself.
Yes, great. Thank you, Claudia. We have the chat open, so I would be happy to respond to any questions that you all have for me. So the first thing I want to ask us, since this is lunchtime, is where is your favorite place in Philadelphia? Feel free to post it in the chat, or also you can just simply unmute yourself. No need to turn off your video unless you really want to, and I could see all of your faces. But I'm just wondering if anyone could share where's your favorite place. And to start us off, my favorite place, not only aside from Portside, of course. Aside from Portside, it would have to be Dickinson Park. It's a park really close to me, and I've done a few cleanups there, and I go there whenever I just need a moment in nature.
That's where you live.
It's pretty close by, yeah.
Oh, it's close. It's in South Philly, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dickinson Park. It's in South Philly.
I know that place.
I know it's really hard to choose. So many places. South Street is one for sure. Yes, South Street is wonderful. There's so many things to do there. Great restaurants. South Street for sure. Anybody else want to add in? Feel free to unmute yourself. Cherry and Ray Street Piers. Oh, that's fantastic because I will be talking about Cherry Street Pier later.
Yes, big things happening at Cherry Street Pier for Maria. My favorite place
Claudia.
is Woodland Cemetery.
Ooh, I don't know
Yes.
that one. I got to check that out.
In West Philadelphia. It's not just a cemetery, it's like a garden. It's beautiful.
Ooh, sounds
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you, Claudia, for sharing. Love Woodlands.
Thank
Yes.
you. Yes.
Yes, awesome. Great. Thank you all so much for sharing. So if there's anyone else, feel free to add it to the chat. I think we have everybody. Great. So I hope if you don't know of any of those areas that maybe you'll explore some of them sometime. Feel free to check out Dickinson Park. I love it there. It's beautiful. They have a great playground and they have, which is great for families. And they also have some beautiful trees and birds. Cool. So to the next part here. I've been thinking a lot about place and space. I oftentimes in my practice will spend time in a place making art and connecting to the people around me. And it's not always completely evident in my work, but there's definitely a connection there. So I'm starting us off with this image of what appears to be broken down cars that it might be kind of different from what you're seeing. We have a taillight here that's melted. We have a car door being really basically hung together with a seatbelt. It's like, hey, that's not supposed to be like that. And we have broken glass. So these images are some things that I encountered in my youth, growing up with an auto body industry in my family. And I spent time growing up in the junkyard.
Was that in South Philadelphia?
No, it was in Jersey.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I'm from Jersey. I know I didn't really mention that earlier, and I moved here just recently in the past year during the pandemic in the midst of all of it. But most of my time was spent in New Jersey and traveling around as well. So I'm really excited to get to know Philly more. I know there are some really cool automotive places here in Philly too, so I'm excited to explore that eventually. But the reason why I wanted to show these images in particular is because of the way that things are being brought together. And that's something that you're going to see in some of my artistic images as well. And we're going to see me piecing together things in maybe some provisional or unlikely ways. So just keep this image in the back of your mind as I am going through some of my other images. So speaking of random things being pieced together, we have here some images of New Jersey, and I have driven on the New Jersey Turnpike in this area many times in my commute to my studio in Jersey City at one point, and just my commute to New York. And we might think that this is what Jersey is, and there's so much more to it. The image on the left, I put it in there, it made me laugh a little bit because it's kind of like what all of us are experiencing now with COVID. Like, hey, this happened and now we're just adapting to it. So I felt like I just wanted a little chuckle there to myself. Like, we're just learning to go through it in the best way we possibly can. And then I have a little image on the map just in case you don't know where our lovely New Jersey is. I grew up in Central Jersey, which some people say it's not a place, but I think it is a place. And
is it like Cranberry?
Yeah, it's by Cranberry. So it's like right on the cusp of North and South. And some people call it Central. Some people are like, no, that's not a thing. So I'll let you decide if it's a thing or not. So I have some images scrolling now of some collages I made in my time at Cranbrook. And this, again, just to rehash, was a place I went and lived there for 2 years. And it was outside of Detroit. And these collages I had been making for about 10 years at this point. And at first it started off just with magazine images, and it eventually built into something far more personal with images of myself. And I'll show how these images here eventually became sculptural, and that's where I'm at right now. So we have a variety of images just scrolling through on the screen. You could see we have magazines, we have what appears to be bodies, we have images that have been removed and ripped, torn, and pieced together in unlikely ways that you may have seen with the auto body parts earlier. So in my time at Cranbrook, I started to paint some of these collages, and this was a very time-consuming process. And this is an oil painting I had made, and it was based off of a physical collage that I digitally altered. And I wanted there to be some skipping and some jumping of the imagery. Eventually, the imagery was becoming less and less recognizable, but you could still see remnants of the human. There's what appears to be some flesh tones, maybe even some chains. And like I said, this was a very time-consuming process. And I had to work really hard in trying to make it look like the image. So eventually, my mentor at the time, she suggested to me, you got to find another way to make these quicker. And I found this immediacy in inkjet printouts. And I was starting to make inkjet printouts on canvas, on paper, and pasting them onto the canvas, almost like you would see with the wheat paste advertisements on the street. And they started to get even bigger than these really small sized collages from earlier. And the content was changing as well. There are images of myself in the collage from a performance I had done at school. And there's text that's becoming legible and maybe unreadable in some areas. And it's also an installation, so they're growing. And we could see here during the daytime, the image is one way, and at night it's lit up with a black light, it changes. And I was really fascinated by that. It was a really cool space in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I have some details here from my thesis show. I had a space in the Cranbrook Art Museum, and I felt really fortunate to have that space. And I made a very, very large scale painting. So there, hold on 1 second, we have some minnows going outside, and they're obviously very excited to go outside. So I'm just gonna give this a minute. You could take the time to look at the image that I have on the screen. So like I was saying, we have a physical and a digital collage that I manipulated. There's also oil painting. And the image was in flux over the period of months. So I would assemble it and disassemble it, remove the imagery, assemble it again, disassemble it again. And there was just this process of regeneration the entire time, translation, transferal. So this was the culmination of my degree program. And the image really speaks for itself, I would say. But there's obviously this image of what appears to be a female form, and really experimenting with the body, experimenting with the way pieces are put together, the way that we present ourselves, maybe feminine body standards. So they're getting more confrontational, both in the text and the scale of the imagery as well. And here's an installation shot in the museum. And it was a really beautiful exhibition, multidisciplinary. It was a combination of not only painting, but also we have many different disciplines at the program. We have sculpture, digital arts, and artists could really decide to do whatever they wanted in their space. And so on. So I just wanted to take a brief moment to take a breath. And if there were any questions, feel free to ask them. I'm going to continue through some slides, but I just wanted to check in with everybody and see how we're all doing.
Cranbrook is a really great school, first of all. It's great that you got to go there.
Yeah.
When people think of Michigan and Detroit, it's like, I feel like you think of kind of these impoverished areas in like a rundown city, but then also there's like this really beautiful part to Michigan, I've heard. Like it's absolutely gorgeous. Did like either of those, like the urban or the rural part, like were those inspirations to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So great question, Claudia. Thank you for asking. She was wondering about the way that some of the urban and rural juxtapositions would kind of seep its way into my way of working. And it definitely, in the beginning, was super inspirational for me. I had these really beautiful stain paintings I was working on, and I started to experiment with rust. So I would go to the local steel areas that they had. There was like steel disposal, and I would use them for painting. So it was really exciting to get to have that contrast and that experience living there. Not only is it a beautiful campus, but it's well inside of this community of artists. And I felt really fortunate to be there. Um, and any other questions from those online? I would love to answer them if you have them, or if you want to save them till the end, feel free. So I wanted to transition with talking about some of my teaching. And at Cranbrook, it is a grad school, and there's also another part of the program, which is their K through 12 private school as well. So as a part of my program, I worked as a work study artist in residency at Cranbrook Educational Community. And I proposed a unit of working lesson plans that I worked in collaboration with the artists and teachers at the program already. And what I proposed was for, as you can see on the left, stained glass staining workshop. So I provided the students with templates of some of the stained glass that I had seen on campus, which is a really big part of the school. And then students stained and dyed coffee filters, and they input those into the stained glass. So that was a fun project. And on the right, we have a group quilt project that the students wound up creating at the end of my time as artist in residency there. So it was super fun. And it was with the Cranbrook Educational Community Brookside fifth graders. And we got a lot of colorful results. It was really fun. And it's something that I look back on and was a really important part of my teaching. So moving on from there, I'm going to talk a little bit more about my time outside of grad school, because that's been where I'm at right now. So I had a residency at 77 Art, which is an up and coming residency for emerging artists in Vermont. It's in Rutland, Vermont. And if anyone is interested in participating in the program, they offer residencies, and they provide you with the space of working. And you could also work on your craft. And there's no commitment to the end of the project. It's really just time to work. So I was really fortunate in having time to work, engage with the community at Rutland, and really explore there. So returning back to the idea of engaging with spaces and places, I was working in this abandoned theater type space, and that's where my studio was. So on the left, you could see the floor.
At 77 Art Residency?
Yeah. So I don't know if they still have the program there or if they moved, because they were in the process of moving. But it was in this abandoned theater that they were making into the residency at the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was in 2019. It was a few years ago, which it feels like yesterday with COVID. So I was working in this space, and I brought a lot of auto body parts with me and collages, and felt really lucky to be able to work on these things without the commitment of really having to tell them, like, this is what I'm going to do. Oh, cool. Yes, great. Thanks for the feedback. I'll talk about that one later. And on the right, you could see I have an image of the waterfall. I did a lot of hiking there, which was extraordinary, absolutely beautiful. I love Vermont. It was great to get to work in the central area of Vermont and explore Rutland. And here's some images from that time that I was there. So again, an unlikely way of piecing things together. I used an auto body fender as the basis for this painting / sculpture. And I created these feather or scale like almost armored kind of pieces on top, and colored them with a second skin, so to say. And it was actually pieces of skin from magazine images. So it was all pieces of images of the body that I had removed from their initial magazine ads. So, I mean, you can even see in the one image, it says something about beauty. So this part of my work, talking about beauty, superficiality, skins, it's something that's really important to me. in my practice. And here's another piece that I had created while I was there, and I wound up finishing it there as well. And it was 3-dimensional. And this one could be adhered to the wall with this armature in the back. You could see it's a similar process, and I also inserted other images of designed pieces as well. So it's bodily in its own self. It's referencing both forms that are ambiguous, femininity, masculinity, body, but yet not referencing anything that's quite nameable. And here's an image of our very provisional art show that we put on. It's called Initiation, and one of the pieces I had shown earlier on a pedestal, and a nice little friend in the background, a cute little dog that was the head of the art residency's pup. So it was really nice. I always make puppy friends everywhere I go. So you could see some of these collage images. I continue to use inkjet printouts, and I also use images of my painting, and am experimenting with inserting images of myself as well. We're getting more and more sculptural as I'm moving along. And then after that, I had spent just roughly 2 months in Italy working at 2 places. So one of the places was at an artist residency for a month in Greve in Chianti, which is right outside of Florence. And it's basically outside of a winery. And it was absolutely bucolic and stunning. And my studio space was inside what appeared to be some type of oil press where they would make the oil, and it was absolutely beautiful. That image is on the left. That was the door to my studio. And then the image on the right is the church. I believe it was a Romanesque church, and I spent some time just meditating in there. It was really wonderful living and working in such a spiritually encapsulating place. So that residency was called La Macina di San Cresci. And something I didn't speak about earlier is my Italian heritage, obviously very Italian last name and first name. And I'm a dual citizen because my father was born in...
Jealous. What are you doing living here?
Yeah, well, I wound up here. There is a huge Italian community here in Philly and also New Jersey as well. But my father was born there, and I wound up, one of the months that I spent there was solidifying my citizenship. I always was one, but I was working through all the paperwork and finally got the paperwork for it. So that was really important to me, having that time working in Italy. And these are some images on the left of some in-progress studio work. And in the center is a wall that I installed some of my collage work. And these collages were a little different. They were made with plaster. And I was using materials that they provided me in their space, as well as things that I could buy locally, because I couldn't really bring things back and forth. And I decided, hey, why not use what's available? So I used watercolor to stain plaster and embedded images of magazines that I had sifted through while I was in my travels. So some of them might be really beautiful, some of them might be confrontational and really push you away. Again, you could still see remnants of the body, and they had some small little fake plants that were in the wall that was left over from a previous artist. And I thought it was really fun getting to work with whatever was left over from the previous person. So those chains that were hanging and the fake plants were part of someone else's exhibit that I incorporated into mine. I was able to process some of these images on my way back when I returned. And you could see a detail on the left. I also used some balloons and things that I purchased, burlap. Don't tell anybody, but there was some dirt in there. It's art. So I just wanted to show an image of before and after of, this was an image that was taken of me my first trip ever to my dad's house. and I'm over there
Where
in the
is that?
doorway. It's in Molise, which is in between Rome and Naples.
Okay.
And the image on the left is when I was 7, and then the image on the right is the image I took in 2019 when I was there, and we're renovating his house. So that was part of my project while I was there. Just to give you a sense of what it's like there, it's very mountainous. That was from a hike that I went on with some family members. It's really stunning. And also there's a ton of work to be done in the house. So it's going to be years once the pandemic breaks, I hope. So after returning, this is a mouthful here. I know we're kind of going all over the place. But after returning, I started this really massive oil painting. I really wanted to paint again. And this is an image of myself that was altered with both collage and with mylar reflecting some of my face. I took the image in a box with a selfie camera stick. It was a really fun / complicated process. And
But
then,
that's all oil paint, right?
Yeah, this is all
it
oil
looks
paint.
like a collage almost. Really well done.
Thank you. And Claudia brings up a really good point. This is all an oil painting, so I'm returning back to that really labor-intensive process of painting. And not only that, but those buckets on the bottom give you a sense of scale. It's about 52 by 70 inches. So this painting took me quite some time. I was in the process of moving spaces, and it's hard to find a space to work in oils. So this brings me to post-pandemic. I was teaching at a community college in New Jersey and balancing having a studio project, which is every creative's story, I know. And then the pandemic hit and I had no idea what to do. So I'm sure a lot of artists are accustomed to this idea of isolating themselves in their studio. And it's something that was familiar to me. But yet something about the pandemic just was jarring to me. I mean, it just was, changing completely how we live. And I'm sure everybody could relate to that that's on this call right now. And I felt like I wanted to do something. And this got me back into making again because my practice was completely disrupted by the pandemic. So here I have this project that I was a part of. It's called the Hand Metal Project, and part of one of the artists in residence at Cranbrook had created that. So there's that connection to Cranbrook. And we made these hand medals and distributed them with hand medal keepers to different people in hospitals. So it would be nurses and doctors and caregivers. And I had never worked with copper before, and I never had made jewelry before. And it's something that I really wanted to do. And it was really fun and it felt really rewarding. So I made quite a few of them. I wish I made more, but it felt like a great way to make something that was almost like a charm, and a way to say thank you. So here we are in Philly. Like I said, I had moved here about a year ago, and now I'm working out of my apartment and also commuting back to New Jersey, where I could do some sculptural pieces. And I'm also working on oil paintings as well. And I'm not going to show images of those because I'm not ready to talk about them yet. But hopefully once my residency is over, I'll have something to show from that. So that brings me to my next point, which is this amazing opportunity that I'm going to have in the next month at Portside, which will be artist in residence at the Cherry Street Pier with Portside. And I'll have a studio space, which you could see on the left. It's in a storage container that they had renovated. The Cherry Street Pier, I believe it was 2018 that they had done this. And this references the history of the pier being a place where it stored different things at one period. And also on the right, I took these images yesterday. These are the train tracks that run through the pier. And I'm really hoping.
Train tracks?
Yeah, they had this access to a train that would transport the vegetables from where the ship would land all the way into the city. That's as far as the research that I've seen so far. So if you ever go to the pier, you could see a few of these things. It has a fantastic view of the Ben Franklin Bridge. And I feel really excited to be able to participate in this project. So from May 24th through June 20th this year, I will be artist in residence with Portside. And I definitely want to thank Claudia and Kim for allowing me to be part of this. I am super excited, and definitely everyone else at Portside too. Thank you so much. I'm super grateful. So it's going to be, I'm going to participate in this mixed use space, and I'm still figuring out what I want to do there. I know I would like to do some workshops, and I would like to do something community oriented as well. So I'm thinking of doing either some adult workshops or workshops with families as well, and perhaps a public installation that we're going to talk about. But first, I'm going to leave my contact on here and just answer some questions, and then we'll get into a little survey I have at the end. So I see there is some feedback here. I had a question, and feel free to post in the chat or just interrupt me and say, hey, I have a question. Your piece from Michigan reminded me of one of Duchamp's installations, Étant Dons. How are they adhered? Okay, great. So yes, I definitely was thinking about some of Duchamp's work at that time. So I'll just navigate back to some of the Michigan work. Bear with me here. Oh, great. Yeah. So some of these images, this was adhered with archival glue. And yes, I used archival glue for all of the pieces. And I also used matte and gloss gel as well. And it's an acrylic archival medium. And I painted into them as well. So hopefully that answers your question. Are there any other questions about any of the other pieces? I'm just going to navigate back to the contact page. All right, any other questions?
I feel like I've just told you so many times how much I adore your work. It's so beautiful. It's and you're not just an oil painter. You know, you do so many things. You do installation and sculpture, but they all have like they're very cohesive. You know, like they all have your voice in them and your like brand. They're very like bodily and visceral, and I always like come back to the body.
Yes.
Yeah, you're like a figure painter, but like not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. I love the visceral, the way that you said visceral too, because I feel like the immediacy of the collage and sculpture is something that I really respond to, instead of just illustrating something with perhaps an oil painting, which I struggle with sometimes. The connection to the body is so immediate, and it's something that I really enjoy, and I feel like is an important part of my practice as well.
Do you have a medium that you prefer?
I anyone who's like spoken to me about mediums, which I talk about quite a bit, I would have to say oil painting. It's a love-hate relationship.
It's a love-hate relationship, yes. It can be a
all
pain
love,
in the butt,
but there's still that. Oh man, sometimes I just get so frustrated with like I can't work in certain spaces with it, or
right,
can't work in the apartment with it. It'll just sink up the whole
high
place.
maintenance. Yeah, you need to have a designated space for it.
Exactly. So that definitely, I would say oil painting by far. It's just something about the smell of the oils and the texture and working with it. Yeah, it's something, it brings me way back to when I first learned to paint. So awesome. Yeah, thank you all so much for listening to me and for being here and present in a very tumultuous time. So I really appreciate it. And I have one more thing before we go that I hope we can participate in. So I have this poll here, and hopefully it should be pretty fun, like a very casual way of interacting. I'm going to put the link in the chat, and it is for a survey, and I'd like you to answer the question. And the question is, what kind of public art exhibit would you participate in? And this would really help me in my time going forward. And I'm going to screen share the mentee survey. So we're going to exit out of this screen share, and then we're going to reshare the other screen if possible. So let's navigate to that on the tab if we can. Perfect. So you can submit multiple answers, and hopefully we're able to see the results. Let me go back here. Be patient with me. So it should be showing the results on the screen. Let me see, I'm going to stop the share and then I'm going to see if I can navigate back to that in a second, because it should have been showing it instantly. Technology. Let's see if I could just enter one. All right, hold up 1 second here. I'm just going to sign into my email real quick, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
And see if I could find the results.
This will give everyone a chance to think and put their all the way down at the bottom.
Oh, yes. I'm gonna give a minute and hopefully be able to see these results. Of course, it's having me go to my email and
Verify
everything.
it's her on her
Yes.
other device.
It's me. Yes.
Hold tight, everyone.
Yes, we're working on it.
And if anyone has questions while we're figuring this out, feel free to speak up.
When I checked on this earlier, it showed me the results on the screen, so I apologize for the confusion here.
Can you go?
Oh, here we go. Went to my promotions folder. Of course.
Typical.
Oh, okay, great. I'm going to share
All right.
this. Thank you so much for your responses, everyone. Let me get back to the Zoom screen. And now we're going to share and bring this tab up. Great. So what kind of public art exhibit would you participate in? So everyone takes part, interactive projections, public art installations, a big one, building park furniture, I love that, sound sculptures, have fun, makes us think. So these are wonderful, I love that. Very cool. Thank you so much for everyone for participating and being patient with me. So unless anyone else has any other feedback, I just want to say thank you to everyone who attended my Artisan Lunch lecture today, and also thank you to Portside. Thank you, Claudia, and thank you, Kim. Thank you so much. It's been really wonderful working here so far, and I can't wait for everything that's to come. I'm looking forward to this residency.
Yes. So again, Maria's residency will be at Cherry Street Pier. I know all of you on here, or I know who you are. So I know all of you know about Cherry Street Pier. And we encourage you to visit Maria during, when is it? May 23rd to June 20th? Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right. Good memory
Studio
for
number
dates.
12.
Studio number 12. First Friday in June, she will have a show. And then the third Sunday is the artist and artisan market, third Sunday of June. So yes,
Awesome.
we're really looking forward to seeing what Maria creates. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And we will